What's up, super women? We're going to have some real talk, stress talk today in just a few moments. Hi there, super women. It's Marcyline of Stress Talk Live. And I'm glad you've joined me today because we're going to have some real talk, stress talk today. I wanted to share with you why I do this every week, most every week. I know I've missed a few weeks, but I want to share with you why I do this most weeks because it's one thing to get on and talk about whatever the topic is. And, but I want you to kind of get some idea of why I do this. One of the main reasons I do this is out of my experience, the experiences that I've had as an adult and in my quest, I guess, to be the everything woman, we call ourselves super women. And because we have a certain image that we want to maintain, we have a certain look that we want to present to others. But in doing that, it often takes its toll on us. And those of you who are super women out there, you know what I'm talking about. It just takes a toll. And unless we can do something within ourselves to prevent becoming overwhelmed or prevent burning out, we are going to have a lot of difficulties physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so I wanted to just give you some idea as to why I do this, how I came to start Stress Talk, how I even came to begin working with women like myself and like you who are out there striving every day to live a life that is satisfying, live a life that helps us to feel whole and full, and without being overwhelmed by stress. So my story is not unlike many others. I am a professional woman. I have an advanced degree in social work, which I'm very proud of. I am married and I have 2 daughters who are now adults. Yay! Because very soon we're going to have an empty nest. And with that empty nest, we want to enjoy it. We want to enjoy our empty nest. But a few years ago, not too long ago, but it's been a number of years ago, my family had an extreme, I wouldn't even call it a situation. We fell on hard times. And when I say hard times, I'm talking about financially. We were in a situation where I was making about $10,000 less than I had previously earned. My husband was out of work, primarily due to health. His health was not well, and he was trying to recover from a condition that almost took his life. Our daughters were very young at the time. One was in pre-K, the other was still in daycare. And I remember getting a phone call from the daycare one day saying that our youngest daughter couldn't breathe, was having trouble breathing. When I picked her up, her chest was caving in. She was gasping for air. She could not get air. And I didn't know what to do for her. I mean, literally, she would take a breath in and her chest, you could see her ribs and her clavicle, the bone here, her bones here, and she was just gasping for air. It was so scary for me. Our oldest daughter, who was in pre-K, was being bullied by the paraprofessional, the adult paraprofessional who worked at the church school. Yeah, and I'm going to call them out because I'm still upset. Our daughter is going to turn 23 next month. And it hurt me so much that this adult bullied my child. Whew. See, it does. It raises all the kinds of things. My hair on the back of my neck stands up when I think about it. But it was a time in our lives that I had never lived through before. I had never gone through anything like this before. I had never had my phone cut off or my lights cut off, or I'd never had a car repossessed. And yet all of those things happened to us. Sometimes I would be at work and I would pick up the phone and dial our number to see if our phone had been cut off. True. Sometimes I would walk into the house and I would flip on the light switch to see if our lights had been cut off. True. There were times when the Georgia Power man would meet me at the door. I'd drive into my driveway and he would meet me at the door and say, ma'am, I'm here to turn off your lights, but if you will just pay them the minimum, Can you pay them the minimum? If you can pay them the minimum, I won't cut them off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and drive around your neighborhood. And if you can pay them the minimum now, they will call me and let me know not to turn your lights off. That happened several times. That man knocked on our door. I would be at home and he would knock on my door and say, ma'am, can you just pay the minimum? I am not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. I am not kidding. I share this with you because I know that I'm not alone. I know that there are women out there just like me who either have gone through this type of situation or are currently going through this situation. The day this man came and knocked on my door and asked me for my keys to the car, I was in tears. I was devastated. I was crying. And he said, ma'am, you're not giving me any problems. He says, sometimes people fight me. He says, call your bank. That's all you need to do. Call your bank and make arrangements. Have you called them? I said, no, I hadn't called them. He said, you call them, make arrangements. He said, and you can get your car back. He said, but I'm going to let them know that you've not given me any problems, because if you gave me problems, then I would tack on a surcharge and you'd have to pay more. All of these things, these financial things were going on. We had medical bills that I can't even describe. My husband's condition was such that he had to go into intensive care a couple of times just for them to make sure he didn't die. You know, there was a time during our marriage where I would say, boy, we've had all of those things that they say in the marriage vows, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. And we almost had in death do us part. No kidding. Not kidding. Not kidding. I kept all of these things hidden from my family, from my friends. I never talked about the times that my phone was cut off. I just, oh, we're having trouble with the line. It must be the line or the lights. Never talked about the lights being cut off. And I never shared that our car was repossessed, that man put our car on a trailer and hauled it off. And I never talked about how it sat in the bank's parking lot with the other repossessed cars. Never talked about that. I never talked about how the parapro bullied my daughter to the point where my daughter was so stressed out. I never talked about that. I did pull her out of that pre-K program, the church school pre-K program, the church school where the people are supposed to be loving and kind. I pulled her out of there because they were not going to break my child's spirit. Sorry. As you can see, that's still, the thought of that still does something to me. That child graduated from one of the top schools in the country. She has, sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I won't belabor that point. I pulled her out of that school and she went to the pre-K program at the daycare where she had spent much of her life, where the people loved her and they loved us. And they were a blessing to us during this time in our lives. The reason, again, I'm sharing this is because I know that women struggle every day with life, making sure that their families have what they need, making sure that their children are growing up to be responsible adults, making sure that they're safe, making sure that they have what they need to grow. Also, I know that women are struggling every day with illness, maybe not their own, but that of a family member or friends who are close to them. During that time, I learned so much about myself and I learned about other people. I learned about the kindness of other people. I remember one day I was at work and I was expecting an expense check, and that expense check was going to allow me to pay a bill that needed to be paid. I didn't get that check. And I was so worried and concerned, and I knew I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have anybody who could give me that amount of money. And I remember walking past one of my coworkers, Judy. She was at her desk and I walked past and she spoke and I spoke to her like I always did. At least I thought it was like I always did. And Judy said, "Hey, are you all right?" I'd always chit-chatted with her and it was always lighthearted talking. And so in my fashion, because I'm a superwoman, I can handle everything and anything. I said, "Yeah, I'm good. Yeah." And she said, "No, She says, no. What's going on?" And I said, yeah, I'm good. She said, no, no, you're not. You're not good. What's going on? And I remember standing there and looking at her, and she said, Marcy, whatever it is, I will do whatever I can to help you. I remember just bursting out in tears. I couldn't hold it any longer. It was like the floodgates were open. It was like the volcano just and I was crying. I couldn't hold it. It was so much and I was so full and I was so overwhelmed. I couldn't keep it in any longer. I told her what was going on. I said, I was expecting that expense check, and because I have this bill I have to pay, and I didn't get it. I turned everything in on time and I didn't get it. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And everything is going on. My husband is sick. He's not well. This is happening. I just told her everything. And she said, well, have you called corporate? I said, no. I didn't call them. I didn't. And she said, why not? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't. And she said, okay. She said, well, Marcy, I'll do what I can. I said, I know, but it'll be okay. And I walked out. I was overwhelmed. I went, did work, and I came back, and she stopped me. She said, I want you to know that I called. I called corporate. You will have your check today. What else do you need? I started crying again because I was joyful. I couldn't even imagine that. I just couldn't imagine. I couldn't do it for myself, but she did. Judy and I have become close friends, and she's someone who I will always hold dear in my heart, always. She was a blessing to me, and she was a blessing to our family. My overwhelm was caused by the circumstances that our family was going through. It wasn't like I could just get up and leave them, right? It wasn't like I could just abandon my responsibilities and go fly to Europe. Didn't have any money. I couldn't go anyway. But how could I get through it with all of the stuff that was going on? A big part of my overwhelm was caused by me. It was caused by the things that I believed, by the things I thought, and by how I went about things. I contributed to the overwhelm. It wasn't just the circumstances. First, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that we were going through the situations we were experiencing, the financial struggles, the health-related struggles, the struggles with our daughter's pre-K school and the teachers there, the parapro. Ooh, I know every time I bring her up, I tell you, that's another story that I'll have to share another time. My other daughter's health, breathing, all of those circumstances were things that were overwhelming in and of themselves. However, because I was embarrassed and refused to ask for help, refused to share what I was experiencing, what our family was going through, I did not open the door for opportunities for people who loved us and cared about us to help us. Our embarrassed, my thought, I was just so embarrassed. I mean, I kept thinking, my goodness, we are professional people. We have advanced degrees. We both graduated from one of the top universities in the country. And our advanced degrees come from some of the top universities in the country. We were once a power couple. And then we found ourselves in a hole. It was embarrassing. I was ashamed. I was I was ashamed. How many out there, how many women out there are ashamed because of the circumstances they are in? Not because they deliberately put themselves in those circumstances, but because life caused them to be in those circumstances. I'm one. I'm one. I was embarrassed. The second thing is, I thought I was a failure. I had failed. Here I was, on top of the world. I was running an organization that spanned six counties, and I was over three of those counties. I thought I'd failed. I thought I had failed myself. I thought I had failed my family. I thought I had failed my children. I considered myself a failure. Every time our phone was off, or every time our lights were off, and especially when that man came and got our car, I felt I was a failure. When I called the bank, the person at the bank said, "Why didn't you call us and tell us what was going on?" And I said to her, I was embarrassed. I was just embarrassed. And she said, "Many people are, but we are here to help you." That's what we do. We got our car back. We did. And we've had several cars since then. But in that moment, I felt embarrassed and I felt like a failure. I was also in that whirlwind of just trying to make it through the day. And I don't know if there's a ride that I think it's at Cedar Point. If you all know about Cedar Point, it's an amusement park that's really fun in Ohio. Six Flags may have it. Geauga Lake, which is also in Ohio, but I think it's now Six Flags. But a lot of the amusement parks had this ride, and it was called the Whirly Gig, I think. But you would get into like a cage thing, and they would start spinning it, and it would go so fast, and they would drop the bottom out of it. And when the bottom dropped, you were pinned to the back of the drum that you were in, and back of the cage that you were in. So it was spinning so fast, you were just pinned to it. And then they would bring, as it started to slow down, they would bring the floor back up. Well, the centrifugal force, remember that from science class? The centrifugal force pinned you to the back of your cage. And it prevented you from falling. It just pinned you there and held you in place. So when we were going through all of these things, that's how I felt. I felt like I was in that whirlwind and I was pinned. I couldn't get out. I couldn't move beyond that. Where I was just stuck. The other thing is, I was blinded to the future. I could not see beyond where I was at the present. I was stuck, and all I could see, I could only see the problems. I could only see the concerns. I could only focus on all of those things that worried me. I basically looked at the donut hole and not the donut. It was difficult. It was more than difficult. It was a difficult time. And that difficult time lasted a span of years. It wasn't like a few months, it wasn't a few weeks, it was years. It occurred over a number of years. And during those years, I was consumed with overwhelming stress. I was stressed out and close to burnout. I don't even know how I wasn't burned out. I think I was burned out, but I kept dragging. I was dragging. I can laugh now, right? We can always laugh when it's over. But during that time, you can't see ahead and you're pinned to the concerns and the problems. My way out was to find what was absolutely vital to my life. I had to find that thing, what was absolutely vital to my life and to my living life. Because I was depressed. There were days when I would go to bed and I would just say, maybe I won't wake up tomorrow. I think that'd be okay if I just didn't wake up. I'm being real. I told you we were having some real talk, stress talk today. Real talk. I would lie down and say, maybe I won't, God, maybe you just won't wake me up tomorrow. I'll be all right. I'd be okay with that. And then I would wake up at 1:00 in the morning and I'd turn the TV on saying, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I can't sleep. I can't rest. I don't know how I'm going to do this. In addition to being depressed, I was anxious, riddled with anxiety. When my phone rang, I couldn't answer it. I was afraid that it was a bill collector calling to harass me for money that I didn't have. I was anxious. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want anybody to see me. I was fearful that I would run into someone. I was afraid that people would learn about our situation. I was afraid that all of these secrets I kept would be exposed. And then, what would people think of me? How would they look at me? How would they view me? Because I was a superwoman, and of course, I was perfect. Perfection was my thing. Isn't that how many superwomen are? We want to be perfect in everything we do, in how we look, in how we sound. Everything has to be perfect. It's about the image. Well, I'm here to tell you that in all of those things that we experienced, and in all of those years of going through, I learned, number one, never give up. That's the first thing. Never give up. Number two, every day there's something worth getting up for. And number three, I learned what is vital to me. What I determined is that if we didn't have a house, if we didn't have a car, if people looked down upon us, none of that mattered to me. But what did matter beyond anything was my family, my husband, and our daughters, and being together. Nothing else was more important to me than that. Once I determined what was vital to me, every decision, every thought, every belief that I had and I held was filtered through that. Will this decision take me away from being with my family? Will this thought, does that have anything to do with being with my family? We got through that situation together. And our daughters, when we talk about those times, our daughters are like, we didn't know anything was going on. Really? We didn't know. We didn't, really? That's what really happened? Didn't know. They don't remember. That's because we focused on what was important and we put that first and we determined our priorities from that very thing. So why do I do Stress Talk Live? Why do I create these experiences for women, especially for super women? Because I know the stress and the overwhelm that you experience. And I want you to know that there's a way to get support. There's a foundation for you where you don't have to carry it by yourself. But even if you are by yourself in it, there's a way for you to get through it so that you can come out on the other side brand new. That's why I've created the Re-You experience for women. That's why I do Stress Talk for women. That's why I have Take the Ish Out of Selfish for women, to demonstrate to you that you can focus on yourself, you can establish your priorities in life, and you don't have to be overwhelmed with stress, and you don't have to be close to burnout. It took me years of experience to learn that, but I do have the key now, and I want to share it with you. And that's part of what I do on Sundays when I sit right here in front of this big A microphone. I share with you the lessons that I've learned, the experiences that I've gained, and I share with you my heart to help you get through it and to help you get beyond it. So that's it for now. I'm Marcyline Bailey. I love you. I care about you. Leave me a comment. Even those of you who watch the replay, just leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. But for now, as always, take good care.